بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. We were studying the verses that they have been used actually in order to claim that the dead people they don't hear. We went through the verses, and according to the context of the verses, according to the sayings of the Mufassirin, we said that what the verses are about to put is that these people whose heart is sealed and the hearts are dead, they are like dead people that they're not going to benefit from what you are saying. They hear what you say, but it's not going to help them because the hearts, they don't have the liability and capacity to benefit from you saying. So do not bother yourself, O Prophet. In anta illa nadhir. You are just a warner and you are a well-wisher to them, but they don't want to accept the message from you. But Ibn Taymiyyah and his followers, they claim that, and they claim that no, the verses mean that the dead people, they don't hear. So when there is such a dispute and we give our interpretation, they may not be pleased with our interpretation, they just want to take it the way that they like, then logically it's the time to refer to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imams. As Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ati'u Allah wa ati'u rasula wa ulil amri minkum. O you who have faith, O believers, if you have faith, then you have to obey the Prophet, obey Allah and the Prophet, and ulul amr, the ones who have been given the authority after the Prophet. فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ, when you had a dispute over something, فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ إِن كُنتُم تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. If you have dispute over something, you have to refer it to the Prophet and Allah, to Quran and the Prophet. If Quran, you didn't get into an agreement on the Quranic understanding, then in order to get the better understanding, the true understanding, you have to refer it to the Prophet to see that what the Prophet says about it. Then it will be better for you. ذَلَكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. This is the best way of interpretation, and the best end is to see that what the Prophet tells you. This is Surah Nisa verse 59. Or for example in Surah An-Nahl verse 44, Allah says, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ. We revealed the dhikr, Quran, to you, لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ. You have the right and you have the duty, you have the authority to do tabyin, to explain it to people, to interpret Quranic verses. So when there is a dispute, we have to refer to the Prophet, then to see that what the Prophet says. When we look at the hadiths of the Prophet, we see that the Prophet has mentioned in different places, and also after him the authorities, according to us, Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they mentioned that the dead people, they hear. The dead people, they have this capacity of hearing. The first hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 2, page 90. Babun al-mayyitu yasma'u khafqa an-na'al. It's a chapter by the name that the dead person, the deceased person, hears the voice of the shoes of those coming to bury him. In the hadith, it comes through Anas from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, "Al-abdu idha wudi'a fi qabrih." Man, when he's or she is put in the grave, وَتُوَلِّيَ وَذَهَبَ أَصْحَابُهُ, then she is buried or he is buried, and his people or her people, they leave. حَتَّى إِنَّهُ لَيَسْمَعُ قَرْأَ نِعَالِهِمْ. He hears even the voice of the shoes of those people. Then أَتَاهُ مَلَكَانِ, then two angels will come to him or her. To the end of the hadith. So what we want to benefit from it is the beginning of the hadith, that the Prophet says when the person is in the grave, حَتَّى أَنَّهُ or أَنَّهُ لَيَسْمَعُ قرع نعالهم. He hears even the voice of the shoes. Here, followers of Ibn Taymiyyah like Albani, they say that, no, we cannot appeal to these hadiths. Why? He says that because Quranic verses say, إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. You cannot make the dead hear. So dead people, they don't hear. And that is the general ruling. When it comes to such a hadith that mentions that the dead people hear the voice of the shoes, then what we can do is that to say that this is against the universal rule. When it is against the universal rule, we just accept this occasion. Only, so generally speaking, dead people, they don't hear, you cannot make them hear. Only hadith says that they hear the voice of the shoes. Nothing more than that. When you look at the Quranic verse and also the hadith, so Quranic verse was the matter of dispute, whether they hear or not. We have to refer to the hadith of the Prophet. The hadith of the Prophet will be explanation, interpretation for the verse. So when the Prophet says that they hear, it means that your understanding from the verse is wrong. Because that universal rule is something that we want to dispute over it, whether to see that it is true or not. Is it Adamul Sama, Adamul Isma, or Adamul Isma'un Nafi? We talked about it. The question is that whether they don't hear or they don't hear in a sense that benefits them. So to understand it, we have to refer to hadith. And in Ilm al-Mantiq, it has been proven that نقيض الصالبة الكلية موجبة الجزئية. الموجبة الجزئية نقيض صالبة الكلية. Means if there is an absolute negation, somebody claims the absolute negation. On the other hand, to reject the absolute negation, it's enough to bring one example. If one example is proven, the absolute negation is invalidated. If you claim that I don't have any money, this is absolute negation. I don't have any money. Then when I find 100 bills, 100 rands, $100 in your pocket, this 100 or 10 or 50, whatever, it's enough to negate your claim. Because you were claiming I don't have any money. So even a small money, mujibatul juziyya, even a small money that we find is enough to negate that universal negation that you were claiming. They say that the dead people, they don't hear anything. And the hadith says that they hear even the voice of the shoes. So this is enough to prove that your understanding that it's Adamus Sema is wrong. Especially when we look at the text that the hadith says, Hatta, even, innahu, the dead person, la yasma'u. Lam is lam ta'kid, is for emphasis. Even he or she hears to this extent that qar'un ni'al. Even the voice of the shoes. Means that they hear also other things. So the emphasis is on Sema, is on hearing. That's why he's saying La yasma'u. So there is lam ta'kid, there is emphasis on La yasma'u. Certainly they hear. So if it was an exception, as Albani is about to say, so there is no need for lam ta'kid, because everything is under the universal ruling as you are claiming. You are claiming that they don't hear anything, and this is only an exception. So it was enough to say that they don't hear anything, but they hear the voice of the shoes. But when he says la yasma'u, is putting emphasis on hearing, means that they hear even the voice of the shoes, means that they hear the rest of the things. And again, to negate the claim of the third point, to negate the claim of Albani, we see that also there are other cases that the hadith of the Prophet says that they hear. So it's not the voice of the shoes is not the only case to hear. There are other things that they hear, so you see that they hear. They have the capability to hear. And the other point, the fourth point is that what is the benefit of hearing the voice of the shoes? If they were only to hear the voice of the shoes, so what is the benefit in that? What is a specification in that? So they could say that when they leave, the Prophet would say that when they leave the mayyit, then the angels come to him or her. So the Prophet is saying they hear everything. حتى إنه ليسمع قرآن آلهم. Even the mayyit hears their saying farewell. That's why we do talqeen to mayyit. When we put the mayyit in grave, we do talqeen. It is recommended to teach, this is a sunnah, to recite the specific things, to repeat shahadatain for him, to believe in the book, in the qibla, in the prophet, in the wali. Why? Because mayyit believes, mayyit hears. So it's not only the voice of the shoes to be heard. So the hadith is sahih in Sahih Bukhari, and these Wahhabis are going to put their own interpretation on the hadith, while the hadith is not to accept that limited and specification of the interpretations that they want to do. There is a question from Ibn Taymiyyah in Al-Fatawa Al-Kubra, volume 3, page 41. He is asked that سئل عن الأحياء إذا زاروا الأموات هل يعلمون بزيارتهم? When people go to visit the graves, the dead people in the grave, do they hear them or not? And do they know about the زائر or not? He says الحمد لله الجواب الحمد لله نعم قد جاءت الآثار بتلاقيهم. Yes, there are hadiths about their meeting each other and the tasa'ul and asking each other. Then he reaches to here. He says, "Amma ilmul mayyit bil hayy." The knowledge of the mayyit bil hayy. He has a knowledge about the people who are living, who come to visit. إذا زاره, when they come to visit. He say ilmul mayyit. They want to say mayyit has ilm, doesn't have sama. Mayyit knows, doesn't hear. So this is the claim. But anyhow, he says, فَأَمَّا عِلْمُ الْمَيِّتِ بِالْحَيِّ إِذَا زَارَهُ وَسَلَّمَ عَلَيْهِ فَفِي حديث ابن عباس. It has been mentioned in the hadith ibn Abbas, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما من أحد يمر بقبر أخيه المؤمن كان يعرفه في الدنيا فيسلم عليه. There is no person who goes to a grave of a brother, they know each other. Then he says, salam, assalamu alaikum, ya ahle la ilaha illallah, for example. Or says, assalamu alayka ya akhi. Salam to you, my brother. وَرَدَّ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. Mayyit salams and gives the salam back. Responds to the salam. قال ابن المبارك ثبت ذلك عن النبي. Ibn al-Mubarak, one of the fuqaha of Ahl Sunnah, he says this has been proven from the Prophet. وصححه عبد الحق صاحب الأحكام. Abdul Haq also has authenticated the hadith. So Ibn Taymiyyah says that when you go to a grave of a person, you say salam, he will respond to your salam. So he hears your salam and responds to your salam. Even though he is about to interpret the hadith in ilm, not sama. They're using the term ilm. So how ilm will take place? They hear. But they want to say that, no, they don't hear. But you see that the hadiths are there. That Mayyit can hear the voice of the shoes, even the voice of the shoes. Mayyit will hear the salam of you. Another example is the story of the Battle of Badr, which is very famous in both Shia and Sunni hadiths. In the Sunni books, it comes in the different books. I just mentioned it from Al-Musnad al-Mawzu'i al-Jami' lil-Kutub al-Ashara by Suhaib Abdul Jabbar, volume 20, page 118. It is about the Battle of Badr, that after the Battle of Badr, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went to the place that the bodies of those kuffar was late. According to some hadiths, it was 3 days after the event. So the Prophet went to those dead bodies and called the corpses which were there and said, addressing them, called their names and said, هل وجدتم ما وعد ربكم حقا? Did you find the promise of Allah true? فإني وجدت ما وعدني الله حقا. I found whatever Allah promised me to come true. Then Omar asked the Prophet that, are you talking to bodies without any soul? This is the mentality of Wahhabis exactly, the followers of Omar. That these are some dead, jifa, dirty corpse which is going to be decayed. They have nothing, so they have no cognition, they have no understanding. So the Prophet said, ما أنتم بأسمع لما أقول منهم. They hear better than you. You are not to hear better than them. ما أنتم بأسمع. Asma means to hear better. The Prophet says, you are not hearing better than them about what I'm saying. Al hadith is famous. Albani says sahihun. So the hadith is sahih. Again, this is another proof that the mayyit hears. Even the kuffar, they hear. So they have to come to justification of the hadith. There is a book, Durusun للشيخ Al-Albani, volume 24, page 3. Let's see what Albani says about the hadith. He says, ما معنى كلام عمر? What is the meaning of the statement of Umar when he said, are you talking to dead corpse and bodies that there is no soul in them? He says, يريد كأنه as if. You know, this is very important. These terms are very important. You know, they always accuse us of doing ta'wil. They say you are doing internal interpretations. But when it comes to them, they do the very ta'wil themselves in order to prove their own view. So he says, كأنه, as if Omar was about to ask that, Ya Rasulullah, نحن تعلمنا منك, we heard from you that Amwat, they don't hear. You are the person who brought the Quranic verses, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِئٍ مَّنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ وَإِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى فَمَا بَالُكَ يَا رَسُولُ. So why you are talking to the dead people? So you see, how do you know? This is the story that Albani is making out of himself. That Omar, when he asked the Prophet why you're talking to dead bodies, he had those verses in the mind. What is your proof for that? No proof. But when it comes to them, they don't need proof. They can claim anything. They are free to claim anything, to make any story. But for you, whatever you say, you have to bring a Quranic proof for that. For every claim that you have, there should be a Quranic proof. But we can make stories. They are free to make their own stories and nobody can question them. So Umar had all those verses in mind, Albani claims. So Rasulullah said, قال رسول الله فهل قال رسول الله لعمر أخطأت? Did the Prophet say to Umar that you're wrong? No, the Prophet didn't. بل أقره على ذلك. But the Prophet even confirmed Umar that no, you're right. You are right in what? That they cannot hear. But the Prophet was about to answer in a way that Umar understands. The Prophet said, ما أنتم بأسمع لما أقول منهم. You cannot hear better than them. كأنه يقول, as if the Prophet is about to say, أنا الذي قلته يا عمر هو حق وصواب. Yes, whatever I said is true, Umar, that they cannot hear. ففعلا إن أنا بلغتك أن الموتى لا يسمعون. That is true that I have told you that they don't hear. ولكن الله تبارك وتعالى أحيا هؤلاء. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave another life to them. Allah returned life to the kuffar. حتى سمعوا الندى. Then they hear my voice. Then they understood what I'm saying. Then that is the story. So you see, he's making a story out of himself. Where in the hadith the Prophet said, Umar, you're right. the Prophet is rejecting Omar. The hadith is very clear. Omar said, you're talking to dead corpse. The Prophet said, you cannot hear better than them. Means that they hear. Where in the hadith is mentioned that the Prophet asked Allah and Allah gave life back to those people, they were alive, and then because they had life, they heard the voice of the Prophet, and then they died again. So you see, they do any ta'wil not to accept the connotation and declaration of the hadiths. Why? Because they want to follow the way that their Imam Ibn Taymiyyah has mentioned that and what they don't hear. In the book As-Siratul Halabiyya by Halabi, Nuruddin Halabi, a Sunni scholar, volume 2, page 246. He says, ثم جاء رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حتى وقف على شفير القليب or قليب. قيل بعد ثلاثة أيام. It has been mentioned that it was after 3 days that the Prophet came to those dead people. And he says that الصحيحين عن أنس. It has been mentioned in the Sahih Muslim and Bukhari from Anas that كان رسول الله كان صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا ظهر على قوم أقام بالعرصة ثلاث ليال. It was the habit of the Prophet, not only this occasion, it was the habit of the Prophet that after he was victorious, after defeating the enemy, he used to stay there for 3 days and nights. And فلما كان اليوم الثالث, when it was the 3rd day, he used to command that now get ready to leave. And then he used to go to those dead of the Kuffar and to say that Ya Fulan, to call the names and to say that هل وجدتم ما وعد الله ورسوله حقا. Did you find whatever Allah and the Prophet promised and warned to be true? فإني وجدت ما وعدني الله حقا. I found whatever Allah promised me to be true. Then he mentions the story of the people who claimed that, or questioned why you are talking to dead people. The Prophet said, "Ma antum ba'asma," you are not to hear better than them. Then he says, وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ لَقَدْ سَمِعُوا مَا قُلْتُ. In another hadith, it has been mentioned that the Prophet said, لَقَدْ سَمِعُوا مَا قُلْتُ. They heard what I said. So do not be surprised. So again, he continues to say that they have life, they hear, and at the end he says ولا يلزم من كونها حياة حقيقة أن تكون الأبدان معها كما كانت في الدنيا من الاحتياج إلى الطعام والشراب. When we say they have life, it doesn't mean that they have this worldly life, to have a physical body, to need to drink, to eat, to sleep. وأما الإدراكات, but cognitions كالعلم والسمع, like the knowledge and hearing, فلا شك أن ذلك ثابت لهم ولسائر الموتى. There is no doubt that knowledge and hearing is proven for the dead who are prophets and the others as well. So you see that in all these occasions, the hadiths of the Prophet is saying that the dead people, they have the capability to hear. It is only the Wahhabis who want to do ta'wil and to go against the appearance of the hadiths. When it comes to our hadith books, again we see that in our hadith books this has been mentioned in many hadiths. You find abundant hadiths in Shia books. I just refer to one or few to see that it's clear, and the hadiths are clear in this. In Usul al-Kafi, volume 3, page 229, Ali ibn Ibrahim and Abihi and Abdullah ibn al-Mughayra and Abdullah bin Sanan. The hadith is Sahih. Abdullah bin Sanan, he is ثقة من أصحابنا رجال النجاشي, says 214. Abdullah ibn al-Mughayra, ثقة رجال النجاشي, says. Allama Majlisi says the hadith is Hasan. Ayatollah Shobiri says the hadith is Sahih. So the hadith is very clear. The chain of narration is okay. Abdullah bin Sanan says, قال قلت لأبي عبد الله عليه السلام كيف التسليم على أهل القبور. How should we say salam to the people of the graves? فقال نعم, yes, تقول السلام على أهل الديار من المسلمين والمؤمنين. Salam to you who were from the lands of Muslimin and Mu'mineen. أنتم لنا فرة ونحن إن شاء الله بكم لاحقون. You passed away before us and we are inshallah joining you. So you address them and you talk to them. In another hadith that Again, the hadith, the chain of narration is sahih. The hadith is in the book Kamil al-Ziyarat. The chain of narration is sahih. The hadith is the 10th hadith. حدثني محمد بن عبد الله بن جعفر الهميري عن أبيه عن هارون بن مسلم عن مسعدة بن زياد عن جعفر بن محمد عن أبيه عن آبائه قال, they said, they narrated from Ja'far ibn Muhammad, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, from his father. قال دخل علي أمير المؤمنين مقبرة ومعه أصحابه. Imam Ali alayhi salam with his companions, they went to a graveyard. فنادى يا أهل التربة, O people of the dust, O people of the graves. ويا أهل الغربة, O people of loneliness. ويا أهل الخمود, O people of silence. ويا أهل الهمود, O dead people. أما أخبار ما عندنا. Let me tell you about the news which is with us. فأما أموالكم قد قسمت. Your property was divided among your inheritors. ونساؤكم قد نكحت. You women, your wives, they married. ودوركم قد سكنت. Your houses, some other people came and settled in. فما خبر ما عندكم. Then tell me what is the news with you. ثم التفت إلى أصحابه. Then Imam alayhi salam said, after returning to his companions, أما والله لو يؤذن لهم في الكلام, if they were permitted to speak the way that you hear them, لقالوا لم يتزود مثل التقوى. There is no provision and portion to take with you like taqwa. مثل التقوى زاد خير زاد التقوى. The best of the provision is taqwa. So you see that Imam alayhi salam is talking to those people, and then he says that this is what they would say. Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Ja'far al-Himyari Saqa, Abdullah bin Ja'far al-Himyari Shaykh al-Qummiyin wa wajhuhum, he was a very respected person among Qummiyin, Saqatun. Shaykh Tusi says, Najashi says, Harun ibn Muslim Saqatun, Mas'adat ibn Ziyad Saqatun, Aynun. So they are all reliable chain. Another hadith, Ali ibn Ibrahim an Abihi an Ibn Abi Umayr and Hafs ibn al-Bakhtari wa Jamil ibn Darraj, from two people. And Imam Abi Abdullah Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam fi ziyarat al-qubur. When you go to do ziyarat of qubur, Imam said قال إنهم يأنسون بكم فإذا غبتم عنهم استوحشوا. When you go to their ziyarah, they will get used to you. They like your company. When you go to the graves, you are there, you are reciting Fatiha, you are reciting Quran, they feel a kind of intimacy with you. And when you leave them, they are sort of terrified. They are sort of feeling lonely after you leave them. Again, the chain of narration, that this is in Usul al-Kafi, volume 3, page 228. And Ali ibn Ibrahim Qummi, Saghatun fil Hadith, Ibrahim ibn Hashamatullah, who says, لا ينبغي الشك في بساقته. And Sayyid ibn Tawus also confirms. The chain of narration is, with all the people are strong. ابن أبي أمير جليل القدر عظيم المنزلة. حفص ابن البختري أصله كوفي ثقة. جميل ابن دراج وجه الطائفة ثقة. And Ayatollah Shawari, he says, is Sahih, Hadith is Sahih. Allama Majlisi says, Hasan in Mir'atul Uqul. There is another hadith that dead people have a kind of attention to their families. Ali ibn Ibrahim and Abihi and Ibn Abi Umayr and Hafs ibn al-Bakhtari and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam قال, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, إن المؤمن ليزور أهله فيرى ما يحب. Mu'min, Allah, this is the gift of Allah, that mu'min has a chance to go and visit his family, and he sees from them what makes him happy. ويستر عنه ما يكره يكرهه يا ما يكره. And whatever may make him disappointed, make him sad about his family, Allah will hide it from him. Then he says, وَإِنَّ الْكَافِرَ لَيَزُورُ أَهْلَهُ. Kafir goes to meet his family. فَيَرَى مَا يَكْرَهُ. he sees whatever that makes him disappointed. Then Imam said, and these people have the capacity to meet their family according to the freedom they have. منهم من يزور كل جمعة. Some of the Ambat, they have the freedom to go and meet the family every Friday night. ومنهم من يزور على قدر عمله. And the others may be free to go according to the freedom that they have achieved according to their actions. Every day, every month, every year maybe. So Imam didn't mention a specific timing for that. So not only they hear, they can also see according to the hadith of Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam. So in all these hadiths we see that Mayyit can hear, and there are some examples. When you put the whole heritage of Shia and Sunni, there is no doubt that they have the capacity to hear. Inshallah, we will continue with the other hadiths. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.